My brother used his job as a city inspector to condemn my inherited house so he could buy it for 40% of its value, but my grandmother knew this would happen. Hi everyone! Today's story will blow your mind, but really quick, if you enjoy this content, hit that subscribe button. Channel's been a bit quiet lately, and your support keeps it all going. Let's jump in. Initial post, r/legal advice. I, 31M, am writing this with shaking hands because I just received what might be the most terrifying notice of my life. My house, the house my grandmother left me just 2 years ago, has apparently been deemed structurally unsound with multiple severe violations. The city is giving me 30 days to complete repairs that would cost more than I make in 3 years, or they'll condemn the property. I'm devastated and confused because none of this makes sense. Let me provide some background. My grandmother, Patricia, passed away 2 years ago after a long battle with cancer. I was her primary caregiver for the last 5 years of her life, visiting daily after work, managing her medications, driving her to appointments, and eventually moving into her spare room when she needed round-the-clock care. She left me her house in her will, a beautiful 1950s craftsman in the Riverside district. It's not fancy, but it's well-built and full of memories. My older brother Michael, 33M, received a cash inheritance of about $75,000. At the time, he complained bitterly that the house was worth more, market value around $320,000, and that the division was unfair. He actually contested the will, claiming I'd manipulated Grandma in her final years. The challenge failed. Multiple witnesses testified about my daily care while Michael had visited maybe 6 times in those 5 years. Our relationship never recovered. I've maintained the house meticulously. Last year, I spent $8,000 on a new roof. 6 months ago, I had the heating system serviced. I repainted the exterior trim last summer. There were no signs of any structural issues. The house doesn't even have the typical old house problems. No sagging floors, no cracks in walls, no doors that won't close. Everything works perfectly. Then yesterday, I came home from teaching, I'm a high school history teacher, to find an official notice taped to my front door. The city building department had conducted an inspection and found numerous severe violations. 1. Foundation failure with immediate collapse risk. 2. Extensive termite damage to load-bearing beams. 3. Dangerous electrical systems creating fire hazard. 4. Structural beam deterioration requiring immediate support. 5. Hazardous materials, asbestos and lead, requiring professional abatement. 6. Compromised roof structure despite recent replacement. The notice, signed by Inspector Thomas Brennan, stated these issues posed immediate danger to occupant safety and neighboring properties. I had 30 days to submit detailed repair plans and commence work, or the city would begin condemnation proceedings. The estimated repair cost listed was $150,000 minimum. I nearly threw up reading it. On my teacher's salary, I barely manage the property taxes and utilities. I have maybe $3,000 in savings. The thought of losing Grandma's house, the only real asset I have, the place full of her paintings and garden and memories, made me physically ill. Within 2 hours of finding the notice, my phone rang. It was Michael. This immediately struck me as odd because we hadn't spoken in 6 months, and I hadn't told anyone about the notice yet. He said he'd heard through professional channels about my situation. Michael works as a building inspector for the city, though in a different district than mine. He said he was calling to help despite our differences. His solution? He'd talked to some colleagues, and while the violations were very serious, he might be able to help me avoid total loss. He suggested I sell the house quickly before the condemnation went through, as condemned properties become essentially worthless. He even offered to buy it himself to keep it in the family and save me from dealing with predatory investors. His offer, $130,000 cash, close within 2 weeks. That's about 40% of market value, but he emphasized it was generous considering the extensive repairs needed and impending condemnation. He kept repeating how he was doing me a favor, how any other buyer would offer even less once they saw the inspection report. Something felt deeply wrong. The timing was too convenient. His knowledge too immediate. His solution too ready. But I was also panicking. The official notice looked legitimate. City letterhead, official stamps, case numbers, threatening legal language. The thought of being homeless, of losing Grandma's house to demolition, was paralyzing. Today I called 3 contractors for estimates. 2 refused to even look once I mentioned the city inspection report, saying they don't get involved with condemned properties. The third, an older man named Samuel, came by this afternoon. He spent an hour examining the foundation, crawling through the basement, checking the electrical panel, looking at the beams with some kind of moisture meter. His conclusion confused me more. He said he couldn't find evidence of the severe issues listed. The foundation looked solid. No signs of termites. The electrical panel was updated to code in 2010. The beams showed normal wear for a house this age. But he wouldn't put anything in writing, saying he couldn't contradict an official city report without risking his license. He just kept shaking his head and muttering, "This doesn't make sense." I'm meeting Michael tomorrow to discuss his offer. Part of me wants to accept just to make this nightmare end. But another part, maybe the part that sounds like Grandma, is screaming that something is very wrong here. What are my options? Can I dispute a city inspection? Is Michael's offer my only hope of salvaging anything from this disaster? What questions should I ask him tomorrow? I'm drowning here and need advice desperately. Edit. I just remembered something. About a month ago, I got a call from someone claiming to be a real estate investor interested in buying properties in my neighborhood. I said I wasn't interested and hung up. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but the voice. Could it have been Thomas Brennan? I'd never met him before, but now I'm paranoid about everything. Update 1. 1 week later. I need to thank everyone who commented on my original post. Your advice to investigate before accepting Michael's offer saved me from making a catastrophic mistake. What I've discovered over the past week has destroyed my relationship with my brother permanently but saved my home. Following the strongest advice from comments, I hired an independent structural engineer. Patricia Williams came highly recommended and cost $500. Money I really couldn't spare but now see as the best investment I've ever made. She spent an entire Saturday examining every aspect of my house mentioned in the city report. Her findings were stunning. Not only were the catastrophic issues fictional, but my house is actually in excellent condition for its age. She documented a foundation, solid concrete, no cracks, properly sealed, drainage working correctly. Electrical, updated to current code, properly grounded, no fire hazards. Beams, original old-growth lumber in excellent condition, moisture levels normal. A roof structure, new installation properly completed, no structural issues. Asbestos/lead, tests came back negative, remediation was done in the 1990s. She photographed everything extensively and provided a 40-page report with her professional seal. She also noted something interesting. The city report claimed the inspection occurred at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, but the timestamp on the digital signature showed 6:47 p.m. on a Saturday. City inspections don't happen on Saturday evenings. Armed with this information, I submitted a formal records request to the city for all documentation related to my property. What I received made my blood run cold. The inspection file contained 1. No photographs despite city policy requiring extensive photo documentation for structural violations. 2. Access logs showing my brother Michael's login credentials were used to view and modify the file multiple times. 3. Inspector Thomas Brennan's signature on my report, despite him being assigned to commercial properties, not residential. 4. A note in the system showing my address was manually added to the inspection schedule by M. Harrison, Michael's login, rather than through normal complaint channels. I also discovered Thomas Brennan wasn't just some colleague of Michael's. They'd been roommates for 3 years and Thomas was best man at Michael's wedding. Their families vacationed together. Their kids play on the same soccer team. Yesterday, I confronted Michael. I recorded our entire conversation on my phone. We're in a single-party consent state. The transcript is painful to read. I'll share the key parts. Me, I know what you did. I have Patricia Williams' report. I have the city access logs. Michael, I don't know what you're talking about. Me, you accessed my inspection file 17 times. You added my address to Thomas's schedule. You did this. Long silence. Michael, you don't understand. I was trying to help you. Me, help me? By stealing my house. Michael, that house is a burden you can't handle. Do you know what's coming? Property taxes are going up 40% next year. The neighborhood's gentrifying. You'll be priced out anyway. I was giving you an exit strategy. Me, you were stealing Grandma's house. Michael, I deserved that house. I'm the eldest. I have a family. You're single, wasting it. Grandma was sick, confused. She didn't know what she was doing giving it to you. Me, she knew exactly what she was doing. That's why she gave it to me and not you. Michael, you're making a mistake fighting this. These reports have a way of becoming real. Inspectors find what they need to find. Houses can become unsafe very quickly. Me, are you threatening me? Michael, I'm trying to protect you from yourself. Take the offer. Walk away. This doesn't end well for you otherwise. The conversation deteriorated from there. He went from denial to justification to threats. He actually used the phrase, "arranged this opportunity," and seemed genuinely convinced he was being helpful. The entitlement was staggering. He truly believes he deserves my house and was justified in trying to steal it. I've hired Susan Chen, an attorney who specializes in municipal corruption cases. She says we have clear evidence of conspiracy to commit fraud, official misconduct, filing false reports, and attempted grand theft. We're filing criminal complaints with the district attorney, civil suits against both Michael and Thomas, and complaints with the state licensing board. Susan has already filed an emergency injunction preventing any action on the false report. She says cases this well documented are rare. Usually the perpetrators are smarter about covering their tracks. Michael's arrogance and assumed immunity as a city employee made him sloppy. The reactions from family have been mixed. My mother refuses to believe Michael would do this, insisting it's a misunderstanding. My father is silent, but I can see the disappointment in his eyes. My cousin Jennifer, who's a paralegal, has been incredibly supportive and is helping document everything. I've installed security cameras around the property. Changed all locks. Added window sensors. Maybe I'm paranoid, but Michael's threat about houses becoming unsafe very quickly haunts me. I've also started sleeping with a baseball bat next to my bed and my phone always charged. Thomas Brennan has already hired a lawyer. Michael is still calling and texting, alternating between threats and pleas. His latest message, "You have no idea what you've started. I have friends throughout the city. This house will be condemned one way or another. I'm scared but also furious. This is my home. Grandma's home. I won't let them take it." Update 2-3 weeks later. I'm writing this update from my friend David's couch because I'm afraid to stay in my own home. The situation has escalated beyond anything I imagined. Michael has gone from desperate to dangerous, and I need to document everything while it's fresh. Last Tuesday started normally. I taught my morning classes, had lunch in the teacher's lounge, graded papers during my free period. When I came home around 4 p.m., my front door was open. Not broken, opened with a key. Inside, I found Michael with two men in Brennan construction uniforms measuring my living room walls and discussing load-bearing considerations. I immediately demanded they leave. Michael smiled and pulled out a new document, an emergency condemnation order dated that morning, signed by Inspector Ronald Price. This one claimed my house had been observed shifting on its foundation, and required immediate structural intervention to prevent catastrophic collapse endangering neighboring properties. "You should have taken my offer," Michael said. "Now the city has to protect public safety. We're here to do emergency shoring before the demolition crew arrives tomorrow." I called 911 and started recording video. While waiting for police, I captured Michael directing the workers to photograph damage they were actively creating. One was literally using a crowbar to pry trim from the wall while the other photographed it as evidence of deterioration. Michael saw me recording and walked over calmly. "It doesn't matter what you film. I'm a city official conducting emergency safety work. You're an untrained civilian who doesn't understand construction. Who do you think they'll believe?" The workers looked uncomfortable. One, younger, maybe mid-20s, kept glancing at the door. The other was Thomas Brennan's brother-in-law, according to his uniform. They'd already removed several pieces of original woodwork and stacked them by the door. My grandmother's built-in cabinet, which she'd loved for its craftsmanship, had pry marks where they'd started dismantling it. Police arrived within 10 minutes. Officers Catherine Martinez and James Liu listened to both sides. Michael presented his official documentation and inspector credentials. I showed them Patricia Williams' engineering report and the recording of Michael creating fake damage. The officers looked confused and said this was beyond their expertise. They couldn't determine which inspector report was valid. They did make everyone leave and suggested I contact my attorney immediately. As Michael left, he whispered, "Tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. With or without you here." I couldn't stay there that night. The violated feeling of seeing them in my grandmother's living room, destroying her cabinets, was overwhelming. I grabbed important documents, some clothes, and my laptop and went to David's apartment. At 6:45 a.m. the next morning, I was parked outside my house with Susan, my attorney, and a court-ordered emergency injunction. Sure enough, at exactly 7 a.m., a Brennan construction truck arrived followed by an excavator on a trailer. Michael stepped out wearing an official city inspector vest and hard hat. Susan served him the injunction. He read it and laughed. "This is just paper. Public safety supersedes court orders." He directed the excavator operator to begin unloading. Susan called the judge's emergency line. Within minutes, we had city police and a city attorney on scene. The city attorney, Marcus Williams, read the injunction and immediately ordered all work stopped. Michael argued with him, claiming immediate public safety risk, but Marcus shut him down, saying no emergency work could proceed while under court review. Michael's face went from confident to furious. He pointed at me. "You think you've won? This injunction is temporary. I'll have 10 inspectors here tomorrow. We'll find black mold, gas leaks, whatever it takes. Your grandmother's precious house is coming down." That afternoon, things got worse. My neighbor Mrs. Henderson called to say someone was going door to door claiming to be from the health department, warning about contamination from my property. The person, matching Michael's description but wearing different clothes, told residents my house had raw sewage leaking into the ground and they should report any odors or health issues immediately. By evening, 3 neighbors had called the city complaining of suspicious smells and health concerns. Susan says this is a common tactic, create public pressure through false health scares. Friday was the breaking point. I'd returned home briefly to get more clothes when I noticed my back gate open. In the backyard, I found evidence of fresh digging near the foundation. Someone had excavated several holes and filled them with water to simulate foundation drainage problems. My security cameras for that area had been spray-painted black. But they'd made a mistake. Mrs. Henderson has a clear view of my backyard from her kitchen window. She'd seen everything and recorded it on her phone. Michael and another man digging the holes at 3 a.m., carefully flooding them, taking photographs. She'd been awake with insomnia and thought it suspicious enough to document. That evening, Michael made his biggest error. Security footage from my doorbell camera captured him arriving at 11 p.m. with Thomas Brennan and 2 other men. They had sledgehammers, pry bars, and what looked like industrial chemicals. The audio is clear. Thomas, foundation corner first. Make it look like natural settling. Michael, no, has to be more dramatic. Emergency collapse risk, remember. Unknown man, what about the cameras? Michael, already handled the backyard ones. Just avoid the front. They entered through the side gate. Within minutes, I could hear sledgehammer blows through my security system. I was watching live from David's apartment and immediately called 911, Susan, and even the local news station, Susan's suggestion for documentation. 4 police units responded. They caught all 4 men mid-swing against my foundation pillars. The damage was thankfully minimal but undeniable. Fresh hammer marks on previously sound concrete, attempts to chisel cracks that didn't exist. They also had muriatic acid to simulate water damage and bags of termite damaged would they plan to scatter in my crawl space. All 4 were arrested. Michael was charged with breaking and entering, vandalism, conspiracy to commit fraud, official misconduct, and filing false government reports. Thomas faced similar charges plus destruction of evidence. He tried to delete files from his city-issued tablet while being arrested. The other 2 men immediately requested lawyers and said they'd been hired for city inspection work and thought it was legitimate. The next morning, investigators from the State Attorney General's office arrived at my house. What they found expanded this from my personal nightmare to a citywide scandal. Update 3, 6 weeks later. The investigation has uncovered a conspiracy that goes far beyond my house. I've spent the last 6 weeks in a surreal mix of legal proceedings, media attention, and personal revelations that have fundamentally changed how I view my family and my city. The state investigation found that Michael and Thomas had run their property theft scheme at least 6 times over the past 2 years. They'd refined their approach with each victim, learning from mistakes. My case was actually their sloppiest. Previous victims hadn't had security cameras or engineering reports to contradict the false inspections. The victims were carefully chosen. All inherited properties or homes owned by vulnerable individuals. Eleanor Chen, 78, widowed, forced to sell her home of 45 years for $90,000, worth $280,000, after a false report claimed imminent roof collapse. Marcus and Maria Rodriguez, who inherited Maria's father's house but couldn't afford supposed $200,000 in repairs while raising special needs twins. Jennifer Walsh, 34, a young widow with 3 children who sold in panic when told her home's toxic mold endangered her kids. Robert Stevens, a disabled veteran threatened with VA benefit loss if he maintained unsafe housing. Dorothy Williams, 82, with early dementia, whose nephew had power of attorney and accepted Michael's generous help. Each thought they were alone, unlucky. None knew about the others until investigators connected the dots, all inspected by Thomas, all approached by Michael or his associates within days, all sold for 30 to 50% of value to LLCs that traced back to Michael and Thomas. The investigation revealed their method. They'd search property records for recent inheritances, scan obituaries for potential targets, check tax records for properties owned outright by elderly residents. They looked for people with limited resources who couldn't fight back. My grandmother, it turns out, had been on their radar. But she was too sharp, too connected in the community. They waited for her to die, assuming I'd be an easy mark, a single teacher with limited income and no knowledge of construction or city regulations. They didn't expect me to fight back. The trial was a media sensation. City inspectors run million-dollar property theft ring made national news. Both men initially maintained innocence, but when the two arrested workers flipped and testified about creating fake damage, when Mrs. Henderson's video was played showing them flooding my foundation, when city records showed systematic targeting of vulnerable homeowners, their defense crumbled. Michael tried one last manipulation, taking the stand to claim he was protecting the city from negligent property owners, and that his methods were aggressive but ultimately beneficial. The prosecutor destroyed him with his own words from our recorded conversation. "I deserved that house," played badly to a jury. Both were found guilty on all counts. Michael was sentenced to 18 months in prison, 3 years probation, and ordered to pay $250,000 in restitution divided among victims. He lost his inspector license, his city pension, and is permanently barred from government employment. Thomas received the same sentence. Their two accomplices got 6 months and probation as cooperating witnesses. The civil suits are ongoing but looking favorable. The city admitted liability and offered settlements to avoid trials. I received $50,000 for damages and distress, plus property tax waivers for 3 years. Other victims received similar compensation. Some are getting their homes back. The Chens successfully voided their sale as fraudulent and will return home next month. The personal cost has been severe. My mother initially defended Michael, claiming I'd misunderstood or was exaggerating. That changed when prosecutors showed evidence that Michael had searched property records for our extended family. He'd identified our cousin Sarah's inherited ranch and our uncle's lake cabin as future targets. Seeing her son had planned to defraud his own family broke something in my mother. She hasn't visited him in prison and removed his photos from the house. My father visits Michael monthly but says little about it. Once he mentioned Michael still insists he was helping me, that he saved me from inevitable financial ruin. This delusion seems unshakable. In his mind, he's still the protective older brother who knows best. The wider family is divided. Some relatives, especially those who always favored Michael as the successful one, think I should have handled it privately without involving police. Others, particularly those with inherited property, are horrified at how close they came to being victims. Thanksgiving will be complicated for years to come. An unexpected blessing has been my neighborhood's response. Mrs. Henderson has adopted me as an honorary grandson. She brings cookies weekly and refers to herself as my security detail. Other neighbors, initially fooled by Michael's health scare tactics, apologized and formed a community watch specifically for suspicious official visits. We have a group text where any city vehicle is immediately reported and verified. Last month, while cleaning Grandma's attic, I found something that suggests she knew exactly who Michael was. In a box of family documents was a letter she'd written but never sent, dated a year before her death. "My dear James, by the time you read this, I'll be gone and you'll be living in our family home. I need you to know this choice was deliberate. Michael has always coveted what others have, schemed to take what he felt entitled to. Even as boys, you protected while he plotted. This house needs a protector, not a plotter. Keep it safe. Love, Grandma." There was also a receipt for the security system she'd installed just months before her death, with a note, "For James, just in case." She knew. She always knew. Final update. 2 months later. I'm writing this final update from my grandmother's living room, my living room, in the house that weathered a storm of greed and corruption. The morning light streams through the original windows, illuminating the built-in cabinets that Michael's crew tried to destroy. Every scratch they made has been carefully repaired, but I know where each one was. Battle scars that remind me what we survived. The legal aftermath continues settling. 3 of the 6 victim families have reclaimed their homes through the courts. The elderly Mrs. Chen cried when she walked back into her kitchen, touching the walls like old friends. The Rodriguez family discovered that toxic mold never existed. Their twins are thriving. The veteran, Robert Stevens, not only got his house back but used the settlement money to finally make it wheelchair accessible. The city implemented sweeping reforms. All structural violations now require 2 independent inspectors, photographic documentation, and supervisor approval. A citizen's advocate office reviews any inspection resulting in potential condemnation. Inspector assignments are randomized to prevent targeting. It shouldn't have taken a scandal to implement basic oversight, but at least future victims will have protection. Professionally, Michael and Thomas's lives are destroyed. Both lost their licenses permanently. Thomas's family construction business, built by his father over 30 years, closed within weeks of the scandal. Michael's wife filed for divorce and moved with their kids to her sister's in Colorado. She sent me a letter apologizing, saying she'd suspected something but was afraid to look too closely. I don't blame her. Michael fooled many people for years. The psychological aftermath has been harder to quantify. I still check my security cameras obsessively. Every official-looking envelope makes my heart race. When workmen came to repair the damage from Michael's break-in, I watched them constantly, unable to shake the feeling they might be creating new problems to fix later. My therapist says this hypervigilance is normal after such a betrayal, especially from family. We're working on it. Trust, once shattered by someone who shared your childhood, is not easily rebuilt. I find myself questioning everyone's motives, looking for hidden agendas in innocent interactions. When a legitimate city assessor came for annual property tax evaluation, I had Susan verify his credentials 3 times and insisted on accompanying him through every room. He was patient, saying mine wasn't the first such request since the scandal broke. Some unexpected positives emerged. I've become an inadvertent advocate for property rights and elder protection. I speak at senior centers about common scams, teaching red flags that might have saved Michael's earlier victims. The State Attorney General's office asked me to help draft new legislation protecting inherited property from predatory schemes. Using my experience to help others gives the trauma purpose. My relationship with extended family remains fractured but evolving. Some relatives who initially defended Michael have quietly apologized, admitting they were blinded by his surface success. Others maintain I should have kept it in the family, despite everything. I've learned to accept that some relationships are casualties of standing up for yourself. Last week, I finally opened Michael's letter from prison. My therapist sat with me as I read it. 3 pages of justification, manipulation, and delusion. He still insists he was protecting me from inevitable failure. He actually wrote, "In 5 years, when you're bankrupt from maintenance costs, you'll understand I was trying to save you." No acknowledgement of his victims, no recognition of the harm caused. Just narcissistic certainty that he knows best. I threw it away. Some bridges aren't worth rebuilding. The house itself has become a symbol of resilience. I've restored every piece of damaged woodwork, reinforced the perfectly sound foundation out of abundance of caution, updated the already safe electrical system. Not because they needed it, but because making these improvements on my terms, with trusted contractors, helped reclaim my sense of security. I planted new roses in Grandma's garden, varieties she'd mentioned wanting but never got around to adding. The kitchen still smells like her lavender sachets. Her paintings still hang exactly where she placed them. This house is more than property. It's a testament to integrity prevailing over greed, to family bonds that transcend blood, to a grandmother who knew exactly which grandson would honor her legacy. For anyone facing similar situations, please know. Document everything obsessively. It saved my home. Trust your instincts about suspicious timing. Get independent professional verification immediately. Don't let family ties prevent you from protecting yourself. Seek legal help at the first sign of impropriety. Build a support network. You'll need it. Consider therapy to process the betrayal. Remember that standing up to corruption helps future victims. Michael stole more than just attempted to steal my house. He stole my ability to trust family, my sense of security, my naive belief that blood means loyalty. But he failed to steal what matters most, the home my grandmother entrusted to me, the integrity she saw in me, the strength she knew I'd need. The house stands strong. I stand stronger. And somewhere, I think Grandma is smiling, knowing she chose right. To everyone who offered advice, support, and validation throughout this ordeal, thank you. You helped save not just a house, but a heritage. This is my final update because it's time to stop looking back and start building forward. The next chapter of this house's story will be about living, not just surviving. Thank you for reading. Protect what's yours. Trust your instincts. And never, ever, let anyone make you feel guilty for refusing to be a victim. Edit. Since many asked, yes, I've changed names and some identifying details for privacy, but the essential truth remains. The criminal cases are public record in my state, but I prefer anonymity. Edit 2. To those facing similar situations who've messaged me, you're not alone. Document everything, get legal help, and don't give up. Your home is worth fighting for. Edit 3. A wonderful update. Mrs. Henderson and I have started a neighborhood heritage project, documenting the stories of our historic homes. Turning something traumatic into something positive for the community. Grandma would have loved it.